Esteemed speakers and participants, ladies and gentlemen, good evening and a very, very warm welcome to this event, Safety Last, Security and Prosperity in the Gigabit Age. This is organised by the Vodafone Institute for Society and Communications, which is an independent think tank of Vodafone. Now, my name is Katrina Sichel, and I'm genuinely delighted to be your moderator for the next couple of hours, because we are going to dive into the wild and wonderful world of digital. Now, apart from the slightly dodgy alliteration there, I did choose those words very, very wisely, wild and wonderful, because I think they broadly encapsulate both the challenges and the opportunities of the fourth industrial revolution, where data is the new oil, where trust is potentially, we'll discuss that, the new currency, and the relationship between innovation and regulation is very much the order of the day. More on the broad context of our event in just a moment. Just bear with me a second because I'd like to get some of the housekeeping details out of the way. Firstly, are phones off or on silent? Can you please check that now? You can leave them on because I do ask you to tweet, but for my own personal survey, who could switch their phone off for the next 2 hours, not glanced it at all? Who could do that? Oh, there's always a few. There's always a few. I feel always quite encouraged. Sometimes there's really just one, and that one tends to be female. And trust me, it's not like scientific evidence I'm conducting, but that is the results of my survey. So, if you leave them on silent, exercise your thumbs, hashtag Gigabit Society, and put out there some nice pearls of wisdom. We will have a flick, we'll see a Twitter wall a bit later, but I won't take questions from the Twitter wall, but if you want to put some great comments or quotes out there from our fabulous speakers, oh, look, there you go, you are most welcome. Secondly, since safety and privacy are a couple of the buzzwords of this event, it does behove me to let you know that we are being both photographed and videoed, okay? So if you do not want to be captured on film, you may politely decline. You do not have to run away in horror, okay? You just say no, or do a bit of a paparazzi kind of celeb thing, all right? So, you know who I am, Katrina. Can I quickly take a read of the room to find out a little bit about who you are? This is a very, again, non-scientific exercise. It's kind of like a very big visual, physical Venn diagram, because you're going to fit into different groups. But let's start with the brainy academics. Apart from the professor, where are the academics amongst you? Who's on their 9th? Look, you're very subtle there. Anybody else? Academics? 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 Okay. Okay. Entrepreneurs. I kind of think we're all entrepreneurs, but if you had to label yourself an entrepreneur, you see, now that tells you something. Freud would have a field day. They're mostly in the front row, okay, and the second row, okay. Technology experts, digital whizzes, where are you? I told you it's a Venn diagram. Please tell me there's more than two. We do know what event we're at, right? Okay. All right. Policymakers, if you dare raise a policymaker who we have on the last panel, policymaker, slightly diagonal there, not sure why that is, looking over each other's shoulders, don't know what that is. Okay. Public affairs gurus. Public affairs gurus, okay. And NGOs? Oh, public affairs gurus over there, okay. Sitting alone in the dark. NGOs. Vocal NGOs. NGO for entrepreneurship and education. University. Oh, okay. Interesting. Okay. Media. Sorry, I went media. Media. Is it just you, sir? Oh, and here. Okay. Thank you very, very much. Genuinely, it helps me understand better who I am speaking with, and also for our speakers to get a better idea. Now, we do have brilliant speakers. I have to say that the organisers have put together a real smorgasbord of brains, okay? So we're going to kick off in just a moment with an official welcome, and then we're going to do a whistle-stop tour. We're going to hear from an award-winning Harvard professor. I think you're here on the front row. We've got elevator pitches from 3 dynamic innovators, future shapers. Where are you? See, they're all sitting together here. They're very obedient. We've got a little video, and then we've got a whistle-stop panel debate which tackles the big questions with 4 fabulous, got to say this, female brains, because it's so rare that I get a panel with 4 women. So yes, I'm going to shut up in just a moment. Bear with me just a moment longer for a little bit of context, so we know kind of that we're all on the same page and what some of the parameters are of the discussion. From a sort of a bigger, broader European picture, I think the EU could be considered quite a leader in privacy. There are many EU actions when it comes to privacy that are being even emulated across the world, places like Brazil, places like Japan. We know that GDPR is coming in May, June. We know there's an ongoing debate, e-privacy regulation. We've got artificial intelligence as a new trending topic. So all of that is out there, all of that is happening. This isn't specifically a cybersecurity event, but what the organisers did want me to communicate with you, it's useful to bear in mind that while national security is actually the competence of the individual member states, because of this digitisation of society and the economy, of course, cybersecurity has increasingly come under the scope of the EU. And so you've got 2013 and 2017 cybersecurity strategies, and that gave birth to the Network and Information Security Directive. And then we're going a step forward, you've got a Cybersecurity Act coming out, and an agency being created, and a certification framework. So there's a lot going on at EU level. But as Jennifer Aniston once said, with a famous swish of her hair, that's the science bit, okay? That's technically what I'm calling the political bit, all right? Now for what the EU citizens think, because that is really at the heart of what we're discussing here today. And I just want to let you know that a Eurobarometer survey that was released, that came out last year, revealed that 75% of respondents think the most recent digital technologies have a positive impact on the economy, 67% a positive impact on quality of life, and 64% a positive impact on society. And 41% think the EU is best placed to take effective action to address the impact of the most recent digital technologies. Okay? So, before I hand over to our first speaker, who is avidly waiting to hop onto the red carpet, let me take an unscientific audience poll. If we're looking at this whole digital dimension, and I'm not just talking about data protection and security, but all these fabulous products and services that our 3 innovators are going to give an example of very shortly. Who is unequivocally excited, no reservations, and has faith? Just faith it's all going to be wonderful and safe, and we're over-worrying. Go on, keep your hands up, just be good to see. Pretty much unequivocally excited. Okay. Who's just scared? Who has reservations? Who's wary? Nobody. Oh, you alone, sir, are wary. Now she's putting her hand up, but our panelists didn't. Okay, and broadly, easy, I know this is very simplistic. Who do you think's responsible for safety and security? Business, government, individuals, or all? Who exclusively the domain of business and those bringing innovations to market? Is it them? Solely them? Government? Government, us, individuals? And all to some degree. Okay, so we're pretty much on the same page. That was easy. And last one, because it's an interesting one. Does regulation necessarily stifle innovation? This comes up again and again and again. Or can the two sit side by side? Who thinks the two can sit side by side and can create frameworks for innovation? And who thinks regulation is just really stifling innovation? Okay, and I'm about to take these off in a minute, okay? Right, I think we're there. I think you're coming, sir. That's it, I know who you are. On that note, I would like you to put your hands together, please. For the first time this evening, give a very, very warm welcome to the chairman of the Vodafone Institute Advisory Board, Director of External Affairs of the Vodafone Group, PLC, Joakim Reiter. Welcome. A warm round of applause, please, to this gentleman. Thank you.
Thank you very much. It was a great reference to an all-female panel, so of course they dedicated a boring man to do the introduction. This is a great, great event, and we're from Vodafone Institute extremely happy to welcome you here tonight. Vodafone Institute, very quickly, is providing a platform, research and analysis, events, dialogues among various actors around the societal impact of technology. And the need for that dialogue, for that research, is greater more than ever. And the simple reason is that the digital transformation as we see it will permeate every aspect of our life as we go forward. And that raises a number of questions. That disappeared. Safety last. Just to give you an anecdote from my past sins, I used to work a little bit on car standards. And if you know anything about car standards, the minute that car was launched, it took decades before the first standards came out. One of the first standards was on the softness of the instrument panel in the United States. As your head was bouncing off the instrument panel, it should be relatively soft as a safety precaution. This was way before the seatbelt and certainly way before the airbags. And I think a lot of us are not going to be particularly satisfied with a situation where safety solutions adequate for the transformation we're envisaging will come decades after the innovation. Therefore, it bodes upon all of us to start thinking about how do we empower the digital transformation, push the digital transformation, make sure that the benefits of digital transformation reaches everyone, while making sure that we build the necessary trust in the technology. And trust in the technology will require both safety and security. And that's a big question. Vodafone Institute, as a preparation of this event, did a survey from 5 member states. I'm Swedish, so of course the Swedes came out odd in this survey, trusting the government and trusting everyone in technology. But most actually were not that enthusiastic or even somewhat enthusiastic about the technology, only 44%. Out of the people that we surveyed, government only came 3rd place in terms of being trusted to manage the transformation. Consumers themselves wanted the responsibility of, if you want, making sure that it's secure and safe. And that's a big transformational shift, particularly in Europe, where we have always relied on the government to make sure that we live in a society which is safe and secure. So with that, that raises a lot of questions, and we have a fantastic panels to discuss it, but I will start with Philippe, there. Philippe is a professor in economics from Collège de France, LSE and Harvard, but more importantly, I would want to say that he's actually one of the most well-renowned economists, and he has worked very intensively on the question of the linkage between innovation at firm level, productivity and growth. And we're extremely pleased to have you here, Philippe. The floor is yours.
My God, this microphone. It's a great honor to be here, a bit intimidating. In fact, my field, as you correctly, you were way too generous introducing me, by the way. I've been working on innovation-based growth. When I was a student in economics, the leading growth model was the solo model. It was a model where growth was driven by capital accumulation. Although it was a model to explain that you need technical progress to grow, but the model would not explain where technical progress comes from. So what we did with a colleague of mine called Peter Howitt, we took we inspired by Schumpeter's ideas, we designed a new theory which based on 3 main ideas. The first idea is that long-run growth is driven by innovation. The second is, and not by capital accumulation. When you just rely on capital accumulation, you run out of steam. You need innovation to sustain growth. Second idea is that innovations do not come from heaven. They result from entrepreneurial activities, and you need the business climate. So institutions and policies impact on growth because they have an effect on entrepreneurs' incentives to engage in innovative activities. So if you are in a place where you are expropriated, or where property right protection, you see already protection is not good, there will be no innovation. If you're in an environment with hyperinflation, there will be no innovation. So policies and institutions are important, and they play a role. So you can talk about policy and institutions of growth. And the third idea is creative destruction. New innovations replace old technologies. So growth is a conflicting process between the old and the new. And when you are in innovative activity, it's a thing where you have turnover. You see, the prediction is that when you have more growth, you have more turnover, more churning, more job creation, more job destruction. And that's what it's all about. And the big problem also is that the world of innovation is that the innovators of yesterday and the unit rents, they may become the entrenched incumbent of today and prevent new innovators. So the one already you can see the role of the state. The challenge is to both provide incentives for innovators, but you want to make sure that they won't use their rents and their wealth to block new innovations. And that's, you can talk about the political economy of innovation-based growth, okay? So I will talk, since you asked me to talk about safety, I will take an approach. I want to mention some risks associated with innovation-based growth. So one is the job risk, which is associated with creative destruction, as I said. Okay. The other one, if you are in an economy which is catching up, a catching up economy, in that economy, you can spend all your life in the same job. But when you are an economy that innovates at the frontier, that's an economy where you change jobs, you change sectors, you change status many times in your life. So you have to organize the economy differently. So, for example, my president in France is about trying to transform France, which was okay for a catching up period, which was the Trente Glorieuses, the 45-75, into an economy where you will have very corporatized. France is excessively corporatist country, where you have 38 pension systems, more than 100 health systems, because it was for the system where people would spend all their life in the same job. But when you are in an economy where you have to change job, this which was an element of safety before becomes an element of risk now, and that's why we have to change. To have one pension system instead of 38 will be an element of safety instead of being an element of risk. So that's why I have to explain. So the job risk is one. The other one is the inequality. I want to talk about inequality. You know, there is the risk of where am I born, and is it a big deal if I'm born there or there? Is it a big risk if I find myself in a bad state and I cannot make up? That's an element of risk. And another one is the environment. BMW is a great place. Anyway, so let me talk about the first one, job risk. I know innovations destroy jobs. We know that. And innovations forces reallocation from job to job, from sector to sector, as I mentioned. We know that the history of growth is a recent phenomenon worldwide. There was no growth worldwide before the first industrial revolution. Here I should go down to 1820. It all starts in 1820 with the steam engine revolution. Then you have another technological revolution, which is electricity chemistry. And then you have the ICT, the information technology, and communication. And each time you had a wave like that, people thought that would be it. When you had the steam engine, you had the Luder movement in Britain. You see, the people were afraid that machines would replace people and we'd have mass unemployment. When you had the electricity chemistry revolution, Keynes would say we are contaminated by a new illness, technological unemployment. He thought that you would have massive unemployment, but nothing of the sort happened. And nowadays, again, you have the fear that because of robots, that's it, there will be massive unemployment, okay? And so that's, but of course we know, for example, that robots, you see here is about AI, you wanted to talk about AI, the number of robots by 1,000 employees has been multiplied by 5 over the past 20-year period, okay? And of between 95 and 2015. And also it has raised a lot in Europe and etc. So we know that there is robotization, okay? That's a fact. We also know that, there's been, for example, a book by Frey and Osborne, so the future of employment, and they claim that 47% of US employment is threatened in the next 20 years by robotization. Okay, so that's a fact. And there I have don't bother with tables, but those are my friends Acemoglu and Restrepo. Acemoglu is a professor at MIT, and they looked at the impact in the US of robotization. And what they find is that the short run impact on employment, on formal employment, is negative. Indeed, they see that you destroy jobs with robots. But there might be a long-term, still, should we be desperate? And my view there is to say, but But innovation create new lines. AI create new lines. It's true that you tend to automate existing activities, but you leave the possibility of creating new product lines. That's what you're all about there. And that will be the new employment. But you need to have the state, and that's where the state plays a role. The state needs to have an education, a training system, a system that will allow people to relocate from the old jobs to the new jobs. But there are new jobs. And each time you had a technological revolution, in fact, it's true that it automated old tasks, but it created new tasks, new jobs. But that's where the state is needed. You cannot just be laissez-faire economy. Okay? Second idea, you have to look at self-employment. It's true that they looked at employment, but they didn't look at self-employment. If you look at self-employment, you can see that it goes up. The whole problem is to make sure that the self-employment is something that leads you to somewhere. It's not just precarious. You see what I mean? And that's a big challenge. And that's Macron tries to do, to have the self-employed part of the social system, that the unemployment system should cover everybody. You see, the self-employed, those who want to leave their job because they are persecuted by their boss. That happens, you know. I don't have a boss, which is great, or not one that persecutes. Okay, so the second risk. Let me talk about the inequality risk. So the problem is that it's true that there has been polarization. The share of income of the top 1% or the top 0.1% has gone up very sharply over the past 30 years in the main developed countries, US, UK, most countries, okay? We also know that the skill premium, that means sharply here, there is a P missing, the skill premium, which is the ratio of the wage of university graduate to the wage of high school graduate, that ratio has gone up a lot also in the past period, because there has been what we call skill-biased technical change. And of course, it's linked to innovation. You see, the thing is that because you see here, the red curve is the share of income in the US of the top 1% income earners. It has sharply risen over the past 30 years, but you can see that patenting, which is one measure of innovation, has also accelerated. And you can show that innovation is one source of top income. There are other sources, but innovation is a source. When you innovate, you make grants, and that's a source of top income, okay? But one should not say, should we say, let's eliminate innovation? No, because innovation produces growth. And also, one can show that innovation enhances social mobility. And because innovation enhances social mobility, you can show that, in fact, it has no impact on overall inequality. It's true that innovation increases inequality at the top, but if you look globally, the Gini or measures, global measures of inequality, because it has this social mobility element, because of the creative destruction. See, that's what creates social mobility. That's good. That prevents innovation from being such a bad thing. So you see, you have the but there. And I just want to show you, you will think I'm cheating, but the line is like that. If you look at the relationship between innovation and social mobility in the US, but you can do that in other countries, you would see that it's very much positive relationship. In places where you innovate more, you have more social mobility. Those are, for example, Massachusetts, California, etc. In places like Louisiana or south of the US, there is no innovation and there is no social mobility. Social mobility is the extent to which your income is not correlated with your parental income. Okay, that's what we call social mobility. And the thing is very interesting. I can look at the effect of innovation on inequality at the top, and I see that it's increasing. But that's the effect of innovation on the global inequality. And you see it's flat because of the social mobility. It's true, yeah, you increase inequality at the top, but you also increase social mobility. So innovation is a good force, but you want to make sure that everybody, you want to enhance the social mobility. To do that, schooling, free school, I like the Scandinavian system personally. Free school, free health, training, and it's not because you are Swedish, but I'm very Swedish model. Not on education, they screwed up the education reform completely. They had the Finnish system, and they totally screwed up. So we can have a debate about that. But another time, that will be the next conference. But that's very interesting to say, well, you know, you can reconcile innovation, and that's what I think Macron tries to do, and other people try to do, is to have a triangle. Have an innovative economy, but with social protection and with social mobility. And that's the triangle you want to achieve. And if you can achieve that, I think you can do a lot. So you can deal with the risk, but that doesn't come. You need the state. So let me go now to the environmental risk. The environmental risk is true that growth generates pollution. I mean, it's true that countries that grow fast tend to pollute more. And we also know, and there is another thing, is that I will show you another regression. I will show you in a moment evidence that firms that have produced dirty in the past, or that have innovative dirty in the past, they tend on their own to innovate dirty in the future. Why? Because you tend to keep doing what you are good at doing. So if you have firms that innovated in hydrocarbons, in CO2 energy, they will keep innovating on CO2 energy. That's because that's what they know to do. They will not start on their own doing other things. So that's why you need the state. You see, the whole debate, when you asked before, do you need the state, or you cannot be safer? You need the people to undertake, to innovate, but you can direct the innovation. So there is my but. So it's true that growth increases pollution. It's true that you have this problem of what we call past dependence, that those who have innovated dirty in the past, they will tend to innovate dirty in the future if left on their own. So you have no guarantee that innovation would go green. But innovation can be made greener if you have the proper policy. And that's where government is important. Government can redirect technical change and innovation towards green innovation, using in particular carbon tax or subsidies to green innovation or to diffusion of green technology. So I don't want to bother you with, that's very interesting to be optimistic. You see that the number, that's the dirty patenting, they have gone up, but you see now that the clean patents are picking up as well. You see, there is clean innovation, and you can accelerate it through carbon tax. That's just happening anyway. But if you have carbon tax policy or subsidy to green research, you can make this curve cross this one. And then you have a new world, you see? So this is a table that shows the propensity to innovate clean. And you see the thing which is very interesting is that your stock of clean is positively correlated to the fact you innovate clean. If you have a stock of dirty, you will tend to innovate more dirty. But the good news is that if you increase the fuel price, which is through carbon tax, you will make people innovate less dirty. You see, you have a minus there, and they will innovate more clean, and that's the plus. So you need government and private agents. You need both. Because you give incentives, you cannot. I'm not for the state to replace the innovators, but you can redirect technical change through suitable policies. And so I will get to the last to my conclusion actually. And my conclusion is to say, well, you know, there are dangers, there are the risk. There is the risk of unemployment. There is the risk of rising inequality, which means that the society would explode, and you have the populism there, and you get Brexit in the UK. If you just do reform without caring, that like was done in UK and US, you get Brexit in the UK, you get Trump in the US. But I think if you have a smart state, you see, if you have a smart government that's aware of this, you can help mitigate those risks. You can have a labor market policy with what we call flex security system, which the Danish have been pioneering, where you have flexibility for firms to hire and fire, because we know an innovation-based economy, you need the flexibility of firms to hire and fire, but you have a system where you provide generous unemployment insurance, conditional on retraining. So you have a system of unemployment insurance training to make sure that you have security on the side of individuals and you help them retrain at the same time as you have flexibility that you need for innovating on the firm side. Okay? So that labor market policy is important. Social mobility, same thing. You need social mobility. You want to make sure that people, no matter where they are born from, no matter where they are now, they can do, if they want to do, they can do. And that you do, there are policies to help social mobility. And education in particular, training, those policies, you know, facilitating entry. You know, you have, for example, labor markets in France is very much segmented and very much, it's very, you have a huge insider-outsider problem. You have to, of course, to remove it. And that would create social mobility and mobility in general. And the other thing is that you can promote green innovation through suitable, carbon tax and subsidy policy. So you can really get to this thing of saying, I want to reconcile innovation, because I know innovation is the source of growth, especially for developed economies, because now the catching up is done by the emerging countries. So we cannot do the catching up us. We have to innovate at the frontier. So I need an economy where you have incentives to innovate. So you need a tax policy, you need a whole ecosystem, a financial system which is conducive of innovation, but you can reconcile that, and I think the Scandinavian example shows it, with social protection and with social mobility. It's very important because you make it, and with environmental policy, because otherwise it will be unsustainable. If you don't deal with inequality, the society will explode. If you don't deal with unemployment, again, populism will rise. If you don't deal with environment, you will have unsustainable growth. And the whole problem is to make innovation-based growth sustainable. And there you need this mixture between government and the private agents. I think I will stop there, and thank you very much.
Brilliant. Well, I just pick up a couple of things which I thought were very. I thought the point about polarization at the top, innovation bringing polarization at the top, but enhancing social mobility globally is a very interesting point. I was going to ask a question, but the microphone has disappeared. But something maybe we can bear in mind in our panel discussion at the end, and something to think about, is this whole issue about the professor used the words that government, the state, needs to accompany, needs to transition people. And reform without caring is, and I think you hit a critical thing, because we live perhaps at an age where caring is becoming a lost currency. And for me, but will you come to my next dinner party and entertain my friends? This is what I ask. Thank you very much. You were fabulous. And you were like this, and then you went, I think I'll stop now. And then you just walked off. But thank you. Can we please give another warm round of applause to this very clever and entertaining gentleman? Thank you.